Welcome, everyone, to the Sideline Report. Today, we're going to interview a special guy. He's one of the legends of Black college football, Coach Willie Jeffries. Coach Jeffries, thanks for joining us here on the show.
Well, Marvin, thank you. I really appreciate it. You inviting me, and I've heard about the Sideline Report, and I'm happy to be one of your interviewees, I would say.
Well, you are definitely a special guest and a featured guest here today. So let's start out, Coach, by talking a little bit about your background, your educational background and sports background.
Well, I started out, I'm a graduate of Sims High School in Union, South Carolina. I attended South Carolina State. And for some of the kids now, the modern day young people, it costs $264 per semester to attend school. Of course, I found that out because I was on an athletic scholarship, and our coach, he bought everything for us. The scholarship covered everything except books, and he said anyone worth their salt can go and buy their own books. They could have. Then I graduated from South Carolina State, played two sports, football and baseball. And then I went on and got a master's at South Carolina State and further study at Indiana University. And that's about the total of my educational background.
All right. And somewhere along the line, you became a member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, which that makes you my brother, right?
Yeah, that's why I wore this pin today, so you would
Yeah, I
recognize it.
see.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I'm a life member. I went over at South Carolina State Alpha Lambda chapter, and
Hmm.
I've enjoyed every moment of it.
Let's talk now about your journey in coaching and just in life. I mean, starting out in Union, South Carolina, I know it was segregated at the time. You guys, you had a powerhouse athletic program there, but you weren't able to play like in your area that much. You had to travel around South Carolina and North Carolina, right?
Yes, we did. As I told you before, we were fortunate to win 92 straight games without a defeat, and that was from 1946 through 1955. And I told you, to my chagrin, I was only on the team that lost that game to Spartanburg in 1955. But we had a great athletics program at Sims High School in Union, South Carolina.
You were not just a great football player, but you were a great baseball player. I know you went up to North Carolina and played some semi-pro type baseball. I mean, you were playing some really good baseball as a pitcher. And I know you played for a coach that I know of up there in Asheville, North Carolina.
Yes, I think Coach Clarence Moore saw me pitch someplace, and he invited me to Asheville to play for the Asheville Blues. And we played the Brooklyn Cubans. It was about the Negro League was kind of fading out at the time,
Hmm.
but they still had,
Hmm.
Hank Aaron, Junior Gilliam, one guy that we did play against him. But those guys some of them had matriculated into the majors. But it was a good league, and I would stay with Mr. Moore. And I found out, I believe he was a graduate of Shaw University, but
Hmm.
I just stayed at his home and pitched whenever they had a ball game, and then I'd go back home after the season was over.
Yeah, that's something a lot of people don't know about you, and I wanted to bring that out. I know you played with one of my uncle's really good friends, Gene Hammonds, up there in Asheville,
Hmm.
and he's a legend up there in Asheville, coaching Asheville High School. And before he was at the Black High School, Stevens Lee. Now let's go into your coaching. I mean, you have had a great coaching career, and you started out where?
I started out about as low as you could get. I started out as an assistant coach at a high school in Lancaster, South Carolina. They'll say Lancaster in Pennsylvania. The people in Lancaster call it Lancaster. But I started out there, and then things weren't going all that well. And I got a phone call one day. The principal at Grenard High in Gaffney, they were paying me $3,200 a year. I know some of the kids watching this show will laugh. That was pretty good money this is 1960, 3,200 a year. And Mr. Simpson called from Gaffney, and he offered me 4,200. I turned it down. My wife Mary found out about it, and she said, "Yes, he'll take it." So that was a stepping stone for me, because when I went to Grenard, we went 64-7 and 2 in 7 years, and I was able to get on at North Carolina A&T as an assistant coach with Coach Hornsby Howell. I'll never forget him, the late Hornsby Howell, who gave me a chance to get into college football. And I can go on from there. I stayed at A&T 4 years, a great place, one of the nicest places we've ever lived. And after 4 years, I went to the University of Pittsburgh. And after the University of Pittsburgh, I got the head job at South Carolina State in 1973.
Was there anything that kind of made you want to come back to South Carolina State? Is that where you really wanted to coach?
Well, it had to be, Marvin. It had to be, because my wife is still not happy. I was making $24,000 a year as an assistant coach at Pitt, and I went to South Carolina State as head coach for $16,000. So that's an $8,000 giveaway in going from an assistant coach to a head coach. But it was just cut and dried. It was my alma mater. They needed help, and I was going to be back in the state of South Carolina. Our kids were about to get into grade school, and I just figured it would be a perfect fit. After all, it was my alma mater, where I played 2 sports and graduated.
This happened quite a bit at HBCUs. A lot of the coaches took less money, but they were doing great things. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and talk about that experience at South Carolina State and further on as you moved in college football. So don't go away. We'll be right back with the great coach, Willie Jeffries.
COVID-19 has changed how we show up and show out with our family. Now it's time to take the first step that lets us get back to talking smack with a side of mac and cheese.
Before we can safely come together, we need the facts.
As COVID-19 vaccines become available, you may have questions.
Should I get it?
Is it safe?
Should I wait?
It's smart to question. Now, get the facts at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Sideline Report. I'm Marvin Jackson, and I am here with our special guest, Willie Jeffries, Coach Willie Jeffries of South Carolina State fame, and also Howard University and Wichita State. Now, Willie, you went to South Carolina State as head coach. That was your first job as head coach. And talk about that situation. What was the challenge there? And what was it like going back to your alma mater?
Well, it was great, Marvin, going back to Orangeburg, going back to South Carolina State. Of course, we had to adjust our budget, as I told you before. But it was just great going back, and we had to revive the football program. When you go to a new job, you never talk about the previous coaches. You don't ask about what type of athletes do you have. because if they were great athletes, the previous coach would still be there. So you're going to a place where they're down in athletic performance. And I believe they were 1-9 the year before. And although the previous staff did a great job, they had a pretty good records up to the last 2 years. And then the program got a little bit ugly, so to speak. And we went back there. We were 7-3-1. And we got invited to the Orange Blossom Classic in Miami, Florida. That's a classic where Florida A&M invites a team from the MEAC or from somewhere up north or wherever, another HBCU. And we had a great year that year, and it was a turnaround. So everyone was happy. We lost the conference championship by a half game. We had a tie with my old team, North Carolina A&T, a 14-14 tie. So that kind of, we didn't win the championship that year. But
who won that year?
I think North Carolina Central or Morgan won.
Okay.
But the next 5 consecutive years, we won the MEAC championship.
Wow.
5 in a row.
That is amazing. That's amazing. And when you went there to take that job, is that something that you felt you could do? I mean, you were pretty confident that you could do that?
Well, I felt that if we worked at it, that we could do it, because there was an influx of athletes in South Carolina. We didn't have to go far to recruit. You'd always have 30 or 40 walk-ons who wanted to come out and prove themselves. And out of that bunch, you would get 3 or 4 to join the team. And the president told me, Dr. Maceo Nance, he said, look, he said, the team's not that good personnel-wise. He said, but you have 2 guys that are pretty good. And that was Harry Carson and Donnie Shell, 2 pro football Hall of Famers.
Football Hall of Famers, yeah.
Not NFL Hall of Famers, pro football Hall of, Harry and Donnie, they always straighten me out about that. But, we went out and they gave me a car. They let me use a car that had been handed down 3 times through administrators. And I took that old car and I recruited. And I think we started about 6 freshmen on that team that year that were very good players. And we just started going upward from that point.
At that point, you became well known as a head coach in Black college football. And then somebody came and said, hey, why don't you come to Wichita State? I mean, now, how did all of that take place? Because at that point, you became the first African-American head coach at a Division I predominantly white university. What was going on in your head at that point?
Well, Marvin, I'll tell you, I knew a little bit about Wichita State, and I really didn't know the location. All I had to do was find Wichita, Kansas on the map, but I didn't know whether that was the name of the town or whatever. And we were fixing to get off the plane in Memphis, because if you fly out there, you stop in Memphis and then you fly on to Wichita. But I knew they were genuine, the reason I took the job, not realizing, Marvin, the pressure that would be on me, on my shoulders, being a first. I had not realized that. But I do know they were genuine, because they went after Coach John Merritt at first. They offered him Tennessee State. Then they went for a friend of mine, Rudy Hubbard, who at Florida A&M. He ran the gambit in 1978 with the Florida A&M Rattlers. They won the championship in the playoffs. So those 2 guys, I guess they were in their comfort zone. They turned it down, and Dick Mansberger and Gil Brandt of the Dallas Cowboys recommended me. And when they came forward, I thought about it. And here's what I thought about. We were often talking about the glass lid, the glass ceiling over the black head football coaches in getting into major college football as a head coach. There was a ceiling that it prevented us from getting those jobs. And I said, well, why not? I should not turn this down because we've been trying to do this for years. Someone has to open the door. And I went out there, and it turned out to be a great place. But I did not realize, Marvin, the pressure, because when the news media people started calling, they said, if you fail, that's going to be a detriment to blackhead college football coaches. You need to do well. And fortunately, we did well. I think we won one game the first year. We were 5-6 the next year. We were 6-5 the next year, and 8-3 the next year. 8-3, which could have been easily a 9-2. So we did our job, and I'm certainly proud of it.
All right. And it wasn't easy though for you, because I know you got a lot of threats actually when you were there, when you took that job, and there were a lot of people against you.
Well, there were Wichita, Kansas, which we didn't know about it, was a town of 400,000 people, very, very wealthy people there. And of course, my kids and my wife tell me from the stands how the remarks went, especially when we were losing. It was tough. We got a lot of hate mail, but all in all, we met some good people, and it worked out okay. But it was not easy at all.
All right. And then from there, you went and took the Howard University job. And we're going to talk about that when we come back. So we're going to take another break, and we're going to come back and talk about that. And then coming back to South Carolina State, and then some other things that people would be interested in knowing about Coach Willie Jeffries. We'll be back in a moment.
You're not too cool for me. And in return, I reciprocate that sentiment. I'll never be too cool for you. I was a man with a plan, but now I'm a dad with a decree, and you can't take that from me. Please let it be noted that I told my job they can dock my pay. Right now it's just too important to take you to school every day. I want to be legendary for you. I want you to puff out your chest when you go to school, the same way I do. I walk taller because of you, because I found everything to live for.
I always used to say my philosophy was win all you can, graduate a drug-free athlete, and never sacrifice the integrity of the student athlete, his parents, or the university. That was my coaching philosophy. Just a couple of lines, but I cut it down to that, and I think that covers all that's good about coaching.
All right, everyone, Marvin Jackson here on the Sideline Report with our special guest, Coach Willie Jeffries. And Coach, you moved on and you became the head coach at Howard University in Washington, D.C. Now, you're a South Carolina guy and all that, and you go to this big city, Washington, D.C., and maybe it was just pretty much more of the same, huh? But you brought that team up, and you guys won a championship.
Well, that was a great experience at Howard. Leo Miles, and who was the athletics director, and Sandra Norrell Thomas, they had always told me, said, if you ever want to make a move, Howard is open. We don't care what we're doing. You can come here. And Dr. Carl Anderson, our frat brother, and Kappa and Boulay and whatever, he and Dr. Sheik, they interviewed me, and it was like a profoctory interview, of course. And I took that job, and the facilities were not too good at Howard. And the way I would recruit, Marvin, when I'd bring the recruits in December, I would rent a bulldozer and tell them to scoop up one scoop of dirt. And I tell the athletes, I said, that's where they're building the new stadium. And to get them to sign on. And
Right.
after they signed on, we'd send the bulldozer back. But, you know, we were very fortunate at Howard because Dr. Cheek, Dr. James Cheek told me, he and Dr. Carl Anderson said, if you can beat South Carolina State, we're going to put in a new football field, because that field was terrible. They called it the dirt bowl, because after practice, you could only see the players' eyes and the coaches coming off the field. Because Isaac Darton, Ike was our friend, and he took care of the grounds. And I said, well, that's all we have to do, Dr. Cheek, beat South Carolina. He said, yeah, you could beat them. We'll build a new field. Oh, we tore them up, Marvin. And he put in that new field, and it really enhanced the looks of the place. And we were off and running to build a good football program. But we needed to kind of spruce up the facilities a little bit.
Mm-hmm. What was the feeling when you won that championship there at Howard?
It was a great feeling, and it was up at Delaware State, and it was so cold that day. It was snowing, ice, whatever, and it was so cold. The sun rose with an overcoat on. I mean, that's really cold. And the score was 12-7, and the reason it was a great feeling, I tell everyone, when you're at the real HU. Now, the Hampton people, they think they're HU, but see, Howard is the real HU. When you are there and you are able to take academically motivated students and win a championship, not where you brought athletes in through the side door and let them play football. These were guys who had to qualify academically, and you win and it proved out that you can win a championship with academically motivated athletes.
What year was that you won that championship at Howard?
1987.
Yeah, that was a good year. And the team did pretty well for a few years too, after you had gotten there.
Well, they did real well. And when I left, Steve Wilson took over, and he had Jay Walker, and they started a passing game. We ran the option. And when Steve got Jay up there, they did real well. And what I'm happy about, we started it out by bringing in good athletes and athletes that were academically motivated. That helped Steve keep the program going, because we left him some good athletes there.
Yeah. Flea, Gary Harrell, all those guys.
Yeah, Flea must have been about 5'8" or 5'9", and I told
more than that.
One day, I said, Flea, you're a good receiver because you can run under the coverage. Because he was
That's pretty good.
Yeah, but he became a good coach also.
Yes, he did. He sure did. Now let's talk about going back to South Carolina State. What was that like? And how did people greet you when you came back?
Well, not bragging or anything. They wanted me to come back, and it was a hard decision to leave Howard. We were going great, and Marvin, we had built up the attendance. People at the Pentagon was asking, how do I get a Howard ticket? I mean, the merchants on Georgia Avenue gave me a banquet because we were drawing people to those stores on Georgia Avenue and making their businesses thrive. So it helped. They always said a rising tide raises all boats. And that's true. Howard was a rising tide in football, and it certainly helped the community. But my mother was in a care facility, and I figured, not talking badly about her, but I said, Mom only has a few more years. We left her there to go to Wichita. And I said, this is a chance. I really hate to leave Howard, but I went back and I was able to spend the last 10 years of her life going to visit her every day or every other day. That was really the reason. And I do know this, that they were committed down there to athletics. Not that Howard wasn't, but you have some schools that are really committed, and you have some that are committed so-so. So I guess mother was the reason. And that's what Paul Bear Bryant said when he went back to Alabama. He said, Mama is calling. So I went back, and my mother lived until 1998. I went back down there in 89, and she lived almost 10 more years. So that was it, because I was from a one-parent home, and Mom was everything.
All right. And speaking of that, we got a couple minutes here. Talk about, maybe I can see that she was an influence on you for sure. Was there anyone else who influenced you as a man? And also, let's talk about your father figure image. People consider you a father figure to them. And I know I've heard your daughter say that, you were a great father. And so you did not have a father. I mean, your father died, I believe, when you were about 2 years old. So how did that become Willie Jeffries, this great father figure?
Well, Marvin, I'll speed it up a little bit. I knew when I started coaching on the college level at almost 70% of the players would be from a one-parent home. So I had to be all of those players. Well, let me put it this way. A good coach is concerned about the academic, social, and athletic development, and you do it in that order. Academically, socially, and you got to know who their girlfriends are. You got to know everything. You've got to know the mom back at home being the single parent. So you have to become a father figure to them. And I did not know it, but those boys said that I was their dad, that I took good care of them, but it was in an orderly fashion, academically, socially, and then, of course, athletically.
All right. And that was important to you, that they got their degrees and got their education right.
That was very important. And you always have to have good academic support services on your campus, because you need that you don't want to keep them eligible. You want them to graduate. And of course, Tammy, your favorite fan, my daughter, the PhD, the post-hole digger, she wanted you to know that you can't get any better. I was best man in Harry Carson's wedding. So you see, when players catapult you to that degree, you are a fatherly figure. And Harry got married up in New York, and I had to find my way up there. But it shows you that the players consider you as their father.
And you're talking about a Hall of Famer right there. And speaking of Hall of Fame, you are a college football Hall of Famer. You're a Black college football Hall of Famer. And I believe you've probably about 15 other Hall of Fames that you're in. But we want to thank you for joining us today, and just wish you well moving forward. I know you're still a mentor and still doing good things. And just thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Marvin. I certainly appreciate it. And I hope to be talking to you subsequently.
Okay.
And I really appreciate it you're in the DC area, I assume. And of course, when you retire like I am, you want people to know about you.
That's right. Nobody will forget Coach Willie Jeffries. Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm Marvin Jackson. We'll see you next time.